Pennsylvania Municipal League, we advocate on behalf of local government in Pennsylvania. We have a full training complement. Our whole goal is to make local governments in Pennsylvania the best possible governments that they can be, that they're responsive to people, and we give them the tools to do those things. This week we have a great lineup of speakers and training sessions. We're honored this morning to have Auditor General Di Pasquale, Secretary Dennis Davin from DCED. Also this morning, Scott Rasmussen, a well-known name in political circles on the Rasmussen poll, and Ballotpedia is going to speak to us. And what great timing with what's going on all over the place.
Municipal pensions are probably the biggest issue, that we're facing. They're just not sustainable anymore, like they were, in the past whenever they were given these pensions. So, that's something that we struggle with, and that's something that all municipalities are struggling with.
Pensions is a very big issue. We have our pension system is about 48% funded from my last count, and so we need to look at ways that we can increase the amount of money we bring into our pension system. The other challenge is that we have more retirees than city employees. That's not just an issue for the city of Philadelphia, but it's an issue for cities and jurisdictions all around the Commonwealth. So coming to the Pennsylvania Municipal League is a real good opportunity to see different ideas and suggestions on how we all can address this pension problem in our cities.
The decline in state support over the last decade, and that takes it's a big hit on our budget every year, and what it means for us in terms of our ability to address other concerns in the city. Always getting a complaint about a street not being paved recently, things like that. So it's about where the allocation of resources goes. Obviously, we want to support our men and women who have served our city, and not having that the same amount of state support has really resulted in short shrift to other important needs.
The pension problem is one of the biggest things that affect us. We're trying to work with the Municipal League to get a handle on that throughout the state of Pennsylvania.
The biggest issue, and one that we've been working on for a long time, is municipal pension reform. And it costs the city quite a bit. Most cities are not fully funded when it comes to funding pensions for fire and police and for public works. The city of Altoona is not fully funded, but we're in better position than most, but it's not provided by the state. Sometimes we have to raise taxes for the citizens, and so that's something that we're looking to do, and we've been working on that for a long time.
Like every other Pennsylvania town, is just to keep the obligation of the pension, but we're hoping that we can speak to our state reps to have it not affect us just as much, being a low urban community.
Finances are always the number one item that stands out. Pensions are that relates to finance. Pension costs are ever escalating. We've got to get those under control. Certainly we have lots of, just the regular inflationary expenses that go with that. Infrastructure, big issue for many municipalities. The ability to invest back in their own communities in bricks and mortar, water, sewer, highways, etc. That funding is all drying up. We really need a commitment from all levels of government so we can go back and invest in our communities.
The greatest need is increased community development block grant money. That's what we really need to use to pave our streets. We're a small community of 10,000 people, and half of those are college kids, and the tax base is 48% is non-taxable because it's charitable organizations. We have the courthouses, the universities, the libraries, and so we're trying to run off of 52% of our tax base, and it's just not quite enough. And without infusion of some block grant money coming in to help us out, it's really hard to do those extra projects. We do those yearly emergency ones that have to be done, but the ones where that your preventative maintenance isn't being done as much or as well as it should be, because we only do what we have for that year and what we have planned for the next couple of years. And so that's some of the challenges that we have as a small community.
Our roads, our bridges, our streets, and then the sewer system. We have an aging sewer system that we're trying to work with Capital Regional Water to repair throughout the city of Harrisburg.
I'm the managing director for the city of Allentown. Again, the city is one of the older Rust Belt cities. It is seeing economic improvement. However, the roads, bridges, the streets The sewer lines, the water lines are older and need a lot of reinvestment. Local government hasn't had the money to reinvest, and it's getting to the point if we don't do that now that we will have trouble in the future. Because we're an old Rust Belt city, we don't have the money to completely revitalize those infrastructure needs, so that's why we need assistance from the state and federal government.
I would like to see a real infrastructure bill that is going to address many issues of old cities like ours in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, dealing with water and sewer as well as issues related to water pollution. We live in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, and that is also a significant issue for us.
Every community in America is struggling, the small ones especially, because Congress has stepped out and they're funding things overseas, they're funding things in other areas, they're spending a lot of money on different investigations, but every small community is struggling. My community, 30 years ago, I got $7.5 million of a $10 million sewer project from the federal government. Today I'm doing a $14 million water project, and I get nothing from the federal government. And that is multiplied by millions across the country. That's why the small governments are struggling.
One of the biggest issues in Altoona is the lack of skilled labor and the workforce shortage that we're going to be experiencing in a few years when a lot of the baby boomers retire. That's not unique to Altoona, certainly, but it's something that we're trying to plan for and prepare for now by making sure that we have the pieces in place and the amenities that we can offer to attract the younger generation to that are looking to come to a city like Altoona.
Some of the other issues are something simple like being able to use radar in controlling speed within your own municipalities, and that's something that we've been looking at.
We have been working on this issue for many, many years. This particular session, we've been able to get further than in any other legislative session. The Senate passed a bill. Unfortunately, it didn't move in the House and was amended significantly in ways that would limit the use to a very small number of communities. So we'll be back again next session to continue to work on this issue, and maybe we can get it over the finish line in the 2019-20 session.
Right now, a hot issue is the wireless industry and the ability to put wireless transponders or whatever they need to be able to get their network up and running, but for the municipality to have some say as to where that goes and and to charge fees for providing the infrastructure and not putting something that's ugly and and that takes the historical value of the city down or anything like that.
Across the nation and in Pennsylvania, we are planning and moving ahead with the deployment of small cell wireless infrastructure. This will allow everyone to have wireless connections everywhere they go and anytime they need them. The important thing here is that local government zoning does not get preempted when deciding where to place the antennas and poles needed for wireless infrastructure. So we are working to try to make sure that local government zoning is not preempted. Local governments are certainly willing to work with the industry to make sure that there is wireless infrastructure in their communities, but we want to have a say in where it's located. And we also need to be able to manage our rights of way and charge an appropriate fee for that management. And we need to make sure that any legislation that passes the General Assembly has an appropriate level of fee and does not preempt local government.
Those are some of the issues. Of course, we're always looking at growing the economy and trying to transform our communities from maybe what they were in the past to what's trending now. In Altoona, we're looking at building on our medicine and our education. We call it Meds and Eds, and revitalizing our downtown. There's a growth toward or a move toward urban regrowth or moving back to urban, so to speak. Another issue is making your community a walkable city. That's something that we're trying to do. We want to connect communities and connect neighborhoods. So there's a lot of opportunities, but there are a lot of hurdles as well.
Affordable housing is an issue that we're dealing with, as well as stormwater and mandates put on us by the state and different expectations that are given to us that we now have to figure out how to, I guess, play by and fix.
Facing Patton Township right now, I would say we're really working to balance our development in general, taking into account the values of various constituents. We want to be sure we're forward focused, we're thinking about sustainability, future generations, but we also want to preserve the character. You know, we really care about green space and preserving land, but, you know, we have growth boundaries, and if we're going to be growing quickly with our businesses, and, you know, we have a lot of students in the area, so we want to make sure that we're growing within the growth boundary and not sprawl, but that means increasing density in a lot of ways, and some people feel strongly about that. At the same time, we have to have some new solutions taking into account sustainability moving forward.
One of the big issues that we're dealing with in Philadelphia, we're dealing with opioid addiction. Just a couple days ago, Mayor Kenny declared a state of emergency in a part of our city to really bring all of our city departments together collectively to address opioid addiction in the Kensington part of Philadelphia. That's an issue not only for the city of Philadelphia, but for cities all around the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So coming to the Pennsylvania Municipal League is a good opportunity to work with other council members and mayors and look at how they're dealing with drug abuse and addiction in their cities.
How serious is opioid addiction?
Well, it's a very serious issue in the city of Philadelphia. Last year we had 1,200 overdose deaths in the city of Philadelphia. That's 3 times our homicide rate, and I know it's an issue for many cities all around the Commonwealth.
I think any kind of grant money that's available in the state or federal level that allows us to do things like improve our downtown areas and get people walking in our communities. So kind of one thing in particular would be something like a facade grant program. Again, I know there was something like that in the past, and having something like that would allow us to build on what we already have and to make certain areas of town a little more attractive and bring people in.
This is a first for the league, first time in our history that a township of the second class exclusively is hosting our annual gathering. We are thrilled to be here in Cranberry. Yes. We're thrilled to be here in Cranberry to learn about the incredible progress of this well-planned community, the remarkable Parks and Rec program, the immense business presence of firms large and small, and an outstanding Board of Supervisors, and certainly one of the finest municipal managers, Mr. Jerry Andre. Please give them a hand.
Let me talk a little bit about Cranberry Township. Until the 1970s, we were largely an agriculture area without any traditional downtown. We were a farming community. We had little more than 1,000 residents in 25 square mile area. We were just over an hour from downtown Pittsburgh. Today, it's much different. We have a diversified economy, several concentrated commercial areas, and about 31,000 residents. Because of highway improvements, we're less than a half an hour away from Pittsburgh. We still have 1 or 2 working farms, but most of the work our people do today is knowledge work. We have significant operations of Alcoa, PPG, Westinghouse, GE, MSA, as well as a number of other technology businesses and professional organizations operating here.
Although unable to be with us today, we have a special message from our good friend and league president, Mayor of the City of Easton, Sal Panto.
Hi, I'm Sal Panto, Mayor of the City of Easton, proud to be president of your Pennsylvania Municipal League. As I look around the room, and yes, I know I'm doing this figuratively, but I know who's in the audience because I've been there so often myself. Good, dedicated, local elected officials trying to make their city and their community the best that it could possibly be. As I look around the room, we also know that we need people who can be involved in our organization, because our organization is only as strong as our members. So I'm asking you to become engaged, whether it's in our lobbying efforts, our committees, or even on our board of directors and ascending to becoming the president of this great organization. I ask if you want to get involved, just give me a call, send me an email. My email address is spanto@easton-pa.gov. My phone number's on the web, everything's on the web. You can even get my cell phone. Get my cell phone number from Rick Shuttler. I'll gladly give it to you. If you want to get involved in our organization to make all cities in Pennsylvania and all municipalities the best that they can possibly be. Thank you, enjoy the conference, and have a great day.
We are honored to have with us today a great leader of a new generation of Pennsylvania, our Auditor General, the Honorable Eugene D. Pasquale.
the cost of local government, whether it be a city, borough, or township or town, are going up. And the financial impact of pensions and the need for statewide municipal pension reform is as strong as ever. And one of my fears has been that with the stock market growing, some of those issues would go off the back burner. And we cannot let it go off the back burner because, again, I'm the one auditing all of these all over the state. And, we may now be getting close to 70% funded in some of these. But the last time there was a stock market boom, it was going over to 100 funded. So in a boom, we're only going to 70 or 80 right now, which means there's going to be a dip again. And I think we are less prepared for that dip now than we were before. So please, let's make sure that we are continually working on this. I know that the report my department did, along with other municipal leaders across the state, I think put together some really bipartisan consensus things that we can do to try to strengthen municipal pensions. Because at the end of the day, why do we need to do this? Look, it's to protect taxpayers, to make sure our public servants that have earned that pension get it, but most importantly, to make sure that you don't have to make cuts to public safety. Because the money's going to come from somewhere, and if we don't fix this system, you're going to have to either raise taxes or cut cops and firefighters, or both. And none of those scenarios is a good situation. So we have to fix that comprehensively in Pennsylvania. The number one job of local government is public safety, whether it be fire, police, or even just your parks and recreation programs for kids during the summer months. So this is where people have a daily interaction with their local government.
Across Pennsylvania, residents have had to suffer an almost unprecedented amount of flooding that damaged or destroyed property, left people without homes, and shut down businesses. In the summer months, communities in all areas of Pennsylvania, the west, central, the eastern parts of the state, were battered by rain that caused water levels to rise and devastate neighborhoods. Governor Wolf saw the devastation firsthand during visits to York, Delaware, Schuylkill, and Bradford counties, where he toured the flood-damaged areas and met with local leaders and residents who were affected. When he returned from those visits, he tasked his agencies like the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, PennDOT, DEP, us, DCED, with making flood remediation and recovery efforts a top priority. While we at DCED have announced hundreds of projects that support flood protection in the past years, it's clear that we expect weather conditions to worsen in the years and decades ahead, and more work needs to be done on this. This administration is committed to working with our regional and local partners to ensure we're properly protecting Pennsylvanians from future flooding in both the short and the long term. Please know we understand the critical importance of this matter, how it not only damages property and hurts residences, but also serves as a repellent to business activity and future investment, and we will continue to stand with you in the years ahead.
One of my all-time favorite polling facts is that 7 out of 10 voters today recognize that Steve Jobs and Bill Gates have had a bigger impact on the world that we live in than all of the last 8 presidents combined, all the presidents who served since Apple and Microsoft were created. This idea that we are fed on a daily basis that change comes from Washington is one of the big reasons we have political discord in the country today. That's not the role of official Washington. And this will qualify as perhaps the shortest history of the United States you'll ever hear. But from colonial times until 1970-ish, everything in America got bigger and more centralized and more homogenized. We went to a place where 94% of Americans were watching one of 3 television networks in prime time. And in the 1970s, a couple things happened. The microprocessor was invented, and then Apple and Microsoft came along. There was also the cable television revolution, so people began to have choice. And the political reaction to that was kind of interesting. There was a national commission put together by the president at that time, and they were greatly concerned that this would lead to a decentralized society. And they were trying to figure out how they could prevent that from happening. And the most fascinating part of the report for me is, in thinking about this in 1980, they spent 9 pages explaining how technology would impact the future. and the word computer was never mentioned. They just missed what was going on. Well, since the 1970s, everything in America has been going in the other direction. It's become more decentralized, more personalized. We all have more power and more information in our smartphones than the President of the United States had a generation or two ago. We communicate in ways that nobody could have imagined. This ability is a toxic threat to large bureaucratic organizations. And yet, as society has been decentralizing, our political process has become more centralized. That disconnect cannot be sustained. You cannot have a centralized government and a decentralized society. That tension is the reason we're into these fights. That tension is the reason that you see this very partisan battle about Judge Brett Kavanaugh. And a lot of people out in the country are saying, but other things matter. Until the national political process catches up and confirms this decentralization, we are going to have a very difficult time. We have a situation in America today that is unprecedented. In 1992, Bill Clinton was elected with a majority of Democrats in control of Congress. He lost control during his administration. George W. Bush came along. He had a majority of his party in control. And you know what? He lost it too. Never before in American history have we had that happen in back-to-back presidencies. Barack Obama made it a threefer. And more than likely during Donald Trump's administration, we're going to have the fourth consecutive presidential administration that has lost control of Congress. This is a fundamental rejection of both political parties. The reason we have this swinging back and forth is because people don't think there is a connection between what the political leaders say and what is going on in their lives. And I worry about this, and I think that things will get worse before they get better because of something that was written back in 1968. For those of you who don't remember or can't place the specific year, that was the year Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy were assassinated. It was the year of the Tet Offensive in Vietnam. It's also the year that I was 12 years old, and you capture the spirit of my world by watching that TV show, The Wonder Years. We didn't understand all that was going on. In that year, Aaron Rudolph,ski a political scientist, said, and again, keep in mind the violence that was going on at that time, there is a simple recipe for violence. Promise people a lot and deliver nothing. Tell people you will make their lives better and then leave their lives unchanged. And he went on to talk about how the issues were different, but went on to talk about how if one political party promises this, the worst thing that can happen for them is to win an election. Because if they win the election, they either have to pass the program that they said they would and prove to people that it won't have the impact that they said it would, or they have to not pass it and upset their base voters. That's the turmoil we're in today. We are at a point where people don't know how to bring about change. And what I'm hopeful about, and the reason I can ultimately be optimistic about America, is we need to get people focused away from the idea that somebody else is going to fix this for us, that we need to send the right team to Washington and let that go. There is work to be done in our communities. There is work to be done in our local governments. There is work to be done in a municipal league like this that can meet people in an entirely different way, away from the political divisiveness that we see. And if we can get people people do this instinctively. They would rather get engaged in a local community effort than in a national political effort. In fact, more than 9 out of 10 say it's a better use of money to give your money to charity rather than to the government or to a political campaign. The message is that the culture leads the nation and politics and politicians lag behind. It's a situation that a lot of times in the media coverage, we think that what's happening in Washington really drives the nation forward. We think that this next election is the most important election of our lifetime. But in reality, it is change in local communities, local municipalities, local officials who are serving their constituents. That's where positive change comes from.
How important is the educational sessions that are offered here to local officials?
We think it's everything. We think that we love the idea of bringing people together and the networking, but going through those training sessions, listening to leadership speakers, that's what this is all about, to go back to your community and be able to implement some of those best practices, because it's an ever-changing world, and it's important. Continuing education in the private sector, continuing education is a requirement. You need to be constantly trained, and I think the public sector, we recognize that, and we want to offer those opportunities.
So I'm pretty new. I'm 10 months in, so this is actually my first PML conference as a board member. I have attended in the past. What I can say is that I really rely on their legislative updates and advocacy efforts to keep me in the loop about things that are happening in Harrisburg.
Our educational session today will be on best practices and policies for managing municipal operating funds and pension funds, and the whole idea is to really look at cash flows, both short-term and long-term, and try to develop a cash management program to take advantage of the interest rates and investment rates available today.
What advice do you have for municipalities?
The first is start looking at your cash flow, how you're managing your cash flow. Look at the competition rates, look at other vendors, and see if there's opportunities to improve earnings and earnings.
Our educational session today deals with eco-districts from a city perspective. So they're a bottom-up, holistic sort of sustainability approach from the community basis, but what we're looking at is how does a city employ that sort of from the top down too, and how do you make those two meet in the middle?
How does an eco-district work?
Eco-districts are looking at the jobs and the buildings and the infrastructure and all the systems that are in place that make a community, and thinking about how they can be more sustainable. So sometimes that's the programs and the people, sometimes that's greener buildings, sometimes that's green infrastructure. It can mean lots of things, but it looks at all of it at the same time.
Our educational session today is about the Community Fellows Program, which is a graduate program at Lehigh University. We educate young future civic leaders through our master's programs that are a combination of experiential learning and actually doing the usual thing that students do in graduate school, going to classes. The value of the program to municipalities is that students in graduate school are able to do experiential learning that benefits them. But for municipalities themselves, they receive high-level work from master's level students. They can have students come for an entire year and work with them as part of their graduate work. So there's an incentive for the students to do particularly well, and they do great, deep work for the municipalities.
Our educational session today involved labor lessons from the headlines to tell municipal managers and elected officials about what they needed to be aware of in terms of trends in labor law development, employment law development, consequences of the Me Too movement, sexual harassment training, and enforcement by the EEOC. And it's important because obviously there's significant legal liability for local governments when they mishandle those kinds of claims and that they haven't made sure that their workforce is free of sexual harassment. So that's really what our presentation focused on today.
What is your advice to municipalities?
Well, certainly they ought to make sure that they're current with their policies, make sure that they're reviewing their policies, make sure they get training on how people can complain when it comes to in terms of harassment or discrimination, how those complaints will be processed and investigated and taken seriously, and documentation of that process, and making sure that they understand what their own policies provide and that they update them, and particularly make sure that the training's relevant to what the policy tells their workforce they can and can't do, and what they have to do in terms of reporting suspected harassment or discrimination. Among other things, the presentation also involves various labor issues as well.
Our educational session today dealt with blight. Blight and the tools to address blight are very important in Pennsylvania because many communities today are struggling with what do we do with our blighted and abandoned properties. Through the session, we shared some of the legislative tools that are in place in Pennsylvania, some funding that is available through the state and local and federal governments, and then support through Pennsylvania's Department of Community and Economic Development with training and technical assistance. My advice to municipalities is to not let properties get to the point where they need to be demolished, that there are tools out there that can help you prevent and address blighted properties before they get so far along that they need to be demolished.
Our educational session today deals with turning brownfields into playfields. And it's important because so many communities throughout Pennsylvania have abandoned waste places and contaminated sites that could be reused for different purposes, especially recreational uses. My advice to municipalities is if you have a brownfield and you want to redevelop it, first thing you do is check with your either the DEP or the DCNR or DCED regional advisors, or preferably all three agencies.
Very important to be able to speak to the elected officials across the Commonwealth and to have the opportunity on behalf of Governor Wolf to come and provide these individuals who are by law responsible for life and safety in their communities, give them an overview of what emergency management is and what their roles and responsibilities of emergency management.
The idea of a thunderbolt. A thunderbolt is a no-notice exercise. You walk in and to your folks and say, hey, we just had loss of power and we don't have a generator and all our computers are down. What do we do? How do we solve our problems? How do we continue government? Continuity of government, continuity of operations. That's absolutely critical. Guess what, folks? You're responsible to ensure that everything goes on in government continues in government no matter what happens, right? It's like the old, postal service, rain, hail, whatever, the whole bit. But we in government have to ensure that our services continue. And whether it is our communications go out, whether it's our power goes out, whether we get a cyber attack, we've still got to be able to do what we need to do. And so I would encourage you to sit around the table and talk about that with your folks to say, what if this happens? What would we do? That's a good way to start, and then you say, you know what, we need to probably think about this and put this on paper and do a checklist and plans type of thing. Because if this happens, we'll then exercise it, and then we'll be better prepared. Flood insurance. 90% of all the flooding, based upon the National Weather Service, 90% of all the flooding that's occurred in Pennsylvania in the last couple of years has been outside of the floodplain. Outside of the floodplain, meaning that flood insurance, people don't even think about getting flood insurance if you live outside of floodplain. In fact, we've had insurance agents tell people, you can't get flood insurance because you live outside of floodplain, which is totally wrong, okay? And so we're encouraging everybody to get flood insurance. The private sector is offering flood insurance these days, and it's actually cheaper than the National Flood Insurance Program, especially if you don't live in a floodway or a floodplain.
Governor Wolf is totally involved with what we do. In fact, the week before we were sworn in, he brought all the major cabinet members in and myself to the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency building and emphasized to them that we can do all kinds of wonderful things as elected officials, but you have one bad event, all that goes out the window. So being prepared and understanding your role and responsibility is my message to them.
Our session today deals with how municipalities, how cities, small towns, villages in Pennsylvania will begin to deal with leadership. Leadership is so critical in terms of moving forward. A lot of things have happened in various communities, and sometimes those challenges create undue risks. So we're going to be talking about some of those things that are risks, some of those things that will make cities and municipalities much better places to live. Anybody that you don't include in your circle of love will hurt you. Think about that for a moment. The people that we don't include, we become exclusionists. Those are the people that we sometimes wonder, what do they want when they come to a council meeting? But if we include them, I had a conversation with a police officer, a ranking officer 2 days ago, who began to share with me this one irate guy that he doesn't know how to deal with in his community. Guy lives in a $400,000 home, yet he's always blaming the police for certain things. I had this little conversation afterwards. I said, you need to go to the guy when there's not a crisis, when he's not complaining.
Our workshop today helps local leaders
to build a better relationship with their college or university. Many of our core communities here in Pennsylvania either have colleges or universities within their borders or adjacent to them. And that involves a lot of great positive aspects. That involves young people, housing, programming. So what we want to do is make sure that we're learning from some of our colleges that are doing it right and getting involved in improving their neighborhoods in their communities. And that's what the seminar is all about.
The title of the workshop is called Visioning and Implementation of the Route 228 Corridor, which is we are sitting in the center of it. 15 years ago, there was nothing around this area. Currently, we now have over 8,000 employees working in the 228 corridor. And this afternoon, we're going to talk about the public-private partnerships that occurred to make that happen.
What advice do you have to other communities around Pennsylvania?
The importance of having a vision on where you want to take your community and then a strategy to implement that vision.
Sustainable Pennsylvania is a program of the Pennsylvania Municipal League and Sustainable Pittsburgh to encourage good governance practices across the state of Pennsylvania to improve environmental quality, economic prosperity, and social equity.
How does it work?
It is essentially a checklist of criteria that municipalities adhere to determine whether they're practicing using these best practices and to look at and examine their own best practices to see if they can make improvements.
We have a program called the Business Leaders Network. It's a partnership where all kinds of folks from various industries that are involved in the municipal marketplace come to the league because they want to build relationships with local officials from cities, townships, and boroughs all over the Commonwealth. We have 24 business leaders, which is the highest number we've had since the program's inception. This is a year-round program. They provide training, education, resources, and they help local leaders save tax dollars and come up with programs to improve their efficiency in running their local government.
Our company is Pliget, the Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust. We are part of the Business Leaders Network, and that has allowed us to partner up with PML and reach out to all of the member communities. It's been very beneficial.
Hi, our company is a member of the Business Leaders Network, and how it means to us is that we have access to being able to meet with all of the leaders around the state. That's huge for us.
I have had a great time interacting with the vendors. The vendors have been very friendly and learned their different products and services, as well as some of the health insurance options out there, including the one that my municipality currently participates in. I was able to learn more about what we're already doing, which was interesting and informational and helps me explain it to my constituents.
Our workshop today dealt with self-funding of municipal health insurance through a pooling concept. We've developed that through a model called the Benecon model, and it's offered to municipalities in Pennsylvania through the Pennsylvania Municipal Health Insurance Co-op. Well, the Business Leaders Network through the Pennsylvania Municipal League has provided us an opportunity to interact with senior elected officials and administrative staffs. Those are the people that are actually making decisions about some of these major policy decisions and the health insurance benefits that their employees receive. So this has been a great benefit to the PMIC program and hopefully to the members.
Our workshop today dealt with going green and sustainable solutions for municipalities, whether it's purchasing green renewable energy credits or energy efficiency projects, all the way to electric car charging stations that are coming throughout the state and the nation. Really giving municipalities options and letting them know what's out there through Constellation.
Tell us about your involvement with the Business Leaders Network.
So we've had a great relationship with the Municipal League and the BLN. We are the endorsed supplier of the Municipal Utility Alliance, and really have used that to really benefit the members of the league and all of the constituency there.
How have municipalities saved money by going green?
Well, there's a lot of different options. The biggest way is reducing the consumption of power, at their facilities through their street lights, and obviously a kilowatt hour you don't use, you don't have to pay for.
Our message is to discuss the National League of Cities Service Line program, which can help municipalities save their residents money, as well as educate them of what their service line responsibility is, all while providing them an optional solution.
How valuable has the Business Leaders Network been to you?
The Business Leaders Network has been a valuable partnership. We've been partnered with the Pennsylvania Municipal League since 2010, and it really allows us the opportunity to meet with local elected officials all over the state of Pennsylvania and get to know them on a different level than we would be able to without the partnership of the Pennsylvania Municipal League.
The workshop dealt with fiduciary roles, and many employers don't even understand that they are in fact a fiduciary for their supplemental retirement plans. So it allows them to have a more complete understanding of what that role entails.
What does that mean for municipalities across Pennsylvania?
Well, it means that they have a fiduciary role. They have to actually monitor the investment choices. They have to work closely with either a consultant or a record keeper in an effort to provide a good value plan for their plan participants.
Tell us what the Business Leaders Network has meant to you and to your company.
It's been a great deal to our company in that we have interactions with many of the municipalities here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and we have opportunities like this for presentations that deal with timely subjects for the employers.
Our workshop today is on cybersecurity. And cybersecurity is, of course, important to everybody, including for local governments. And October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so that's what we're going to talk about.
What is your advice to municipalities?
There are multiple things you can do. Be prepared, because it's not a question of whether it will happen to you, whether you'll be a victim of a cyber attack. It is when. So be prepared.
Our Municipal Utility Alliance was established in 1998. Constellation was selected to be the exclusive energy provider in 2010. Together, we serve 280 entities throughout the state. Municipalities and authorities have purchased more than 1 billion kilowatt hours of electricity, resulting in millions of tax dollars saved. Constellation not only provides pricing for electricity, but also provides technical assistance and education to municipalities to be smart purchasers and consumers of energy. Through their Energy Made Easy program, Constellation is at the forefront of green energy and efficiency programs that promote sustainable energy solutions. For your outstanding partnership with the League and your quality service to communities throughout our Commonwealth, we are happy to recognize you today.
Thank you, Ed.
And at this time, I'd just like to thank all of the other business leaders networks who are still with us today, but have also been with us throughout the summit. We really appreciate having you as partners. Our annual high school essay contest featured the theme Civics and You, your key to Pennsylvania local government. Our online civics book at pml.org. The essay contest was designed to help make scholarships available for students throughout Pennsylvania. Thank you to our distinguished 2018 panel of judges. We are pleased to announce this year's award winners. Our first place winner is Molly Ehrig, Bethlehem Catholic High School, who is unable to be with us today. This year's second place winner is Noel? Yeah? Okay. Noel C. Moore, Central Mountain High School.
I'd like to thank the League and Mrs. Garner for this award. Thank you very much.
This year's third place winner is Shirley-Ann L. Harmon, Seneca Valley High School.
I'll echo the previous winners. I'd like to thank Ms. Gardner and the League for everything, especially for an award celebrating something that is important as civic engagement.
3/4 of all of the roads, all the transportation, is paid for by cities and states, not the federal government. And 95% of all of the water infrastructure that we have is paid for by cities. So your water systems, your sewer systems are all done locally, and they're paid for locally. They're paid for locally. And so in Little Rock, for example, I pulled all our departments together and our commissions, and I I wanted to take an estimate of what our capital infrastructure needs are going to be over the next 10 years. And it's $2 billion, $2 billion worth of infrastructure that we need to meet those needs. So what have we done? We've passed local sales taxes, as I mentioned. We've issued municipal bonds. We've reissued municipal bonds. We've done some advanced refunding, which the government took away from us in the tax bill back in December. We passed dedicated millages. We authorized tourism taxes. We developed improvement district assessments, all of that, and we still have $2 billion. So cities have been shouldering the responsibility for these capital improvements ourselves. And so we need a partner, and we need a partner that wants to share with us. When the Society of Civil Engineers says that we've got a D+ in terms of our infrastructure, you would think that Congress, instead of fighting among themselves, would start figuring out how to be a partner with us and to help us in terms of these great infrastructure needs. Or I guess we will just wait for another disaster to happen, and then FEMA will have to come in, we'll have to declare a national emergency.
Whether it's a bridge that fails in Minnesota that kills people, or whether it's wildfires in California, or whether it's floods and tornadoes and hurricanes along the coastal areas, these are the kind of things that we've got to work together to have some smart thinking and some money and some funding to try and take care of these issues. So we've launched at the national level concept of rebuild with us, meaning rebuild with cities. And so that's one of the messages that I talk to them about. And then finally, from a focus myself as president, I talk to them about the future of work and the huge collision and transformation that's going on with our workforce. By 2030, every baby boomer will be over 65. That means that 1/5 of our entire country will be eligible for Social Security. So we've got a great transition going on here. So we've got to work on the skills and the trades and the things that are beyond high school but not necessarily a college degree to make sure that we've got an adequate workforce to do the jobs that are necessary to keep this country moving.
Would you please raise your right hand to be sworn? Would you repeat after me? I state your name. I, do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Commonwealth, the principles and the bylaws of the Pennsylvania Municipal League, and that I will discharge my duties of my office with fidelity. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Officially sworn in.
I think one of the biggest things that has been a huge help for me as a council member is the fact that I feel like we're not alone and that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes we can tap into other communities' experiences, what they've done, and realize that, wow, we're not the only one that's gone through this before, and there's precedent for that, and we can actually sit down and sometimes have a round table. One of the big issues a few years ago was stormwater management, and we didn't know how we were going to do that. We were able to sit down with other communities and talk that through, and we're doing some similar things that other communities are doing around that as well. So just the ability to bounce ideas off of each other, to learn from experts in the field, to learn from people who have been through it before has been invaluable.
This is an opportunity to tell us what's on the Capitol Hill. The legislative updates is so important because we need to follow what is happening and as it affects our city. And also the training that they provide is very, very important. There's a lot of our council members who I have now as millennials need to come to these type of trainings to be able to understand what it is as a council member.
The first time that I came, it was basically just to see how the Pennsylvania Municipal League was. And then I decided that I wanted to join and be a board member because it was very interesting to me. Some of the things that I like about it is that we're looking at other communities that are just like ours. And so I love the information sessions of bouncing ideas off of each other from city to city and getting some things that affects us and giving some information that affects other cities.
This is my first time attending PML. I suppose so far what I've learned is that PML does some really important work advocating for all of the communities. It's been interesting hearing from different representatives about what they're facing. We were just talking in the resolutions meeting about how do we deal with recycling, having more materials, what do we do with it? The market's not as good now for people to be selling the materials, and hearing about the different struggles that different municipalities have. I am really looking forward to some of the sessions later. There's one right now on the cybersecurity. I want to be going to the ones about sustainability. We're applying for Sustainable PA right now, and so I talked to them for a little while downstairs. That program through PML is really great, so talking to them was nice too.
Local government's where you see the biggest impact. Everybody is so enamored with what happens at the federal level, but rarely that you ever really feel the results trickle down that far. So, local government is where your streets get paved and your roads get plowed. So, that's where the biggest impact is, and I wish more people, got excited about that and came out to the polls on election day for municipal elections.
I'd like them to recognize that we're the closest to the people, and that the state and federal governments certainly all have their role, but we change lives and impact lives every day. And so I want the public to recognize that, and recognize that these folks that are, in many cases, volunteering their time, certainly a lot of paid professionals, need their support and need you to work. They need your input. They need to hear from you and be part of that local government structure.
If people have questions, like more information, what should they do?
Any of our members can call the Municipal League at any time onto our website and ask for information. Certainly, as a member of the general public, interact with your local government. Usually the lines of communication are open, and you can do that. So I would encourage folks to do that. But we're here to help, and any one of our members can call us anytime.
We're building a playground in one day with the help of the Pennsylvania Municipal League.
We're partnering with our friends at Kaboom and our friends at DCNR, the state agency, to build a playground here in Cranberry Township. We do one of these every year in conjunction with our summit, and we're thrilled to do it. It's just a great sort of team-building effort, and our members get to come out and help one of their colleagues in the municipal world build a new playground for their kids.
I think it's so valuable to have the volunteers out today because it's the constituents working with their elected officials. It makes for a really awesome opportunity and unique way to build community.
We've been doing it for a number of years. We started out in Bethlehem many years ago, and every year we've done one. When we don't do it in conjunction with the summit, we do it at another time in the year. Last year we were in Lebanon. We've been in Harrisburg, Erie. So many places, and it's been a great experience for all of us.
It's a good way for us to get involved with helping out our fellow municipalities. So that's one of the things in local government. We all work together. We all are there to support one another. So this is just another way to do that.
It's really what the Pennsylvania Municipal League is all about, is trying to make local governments the best they can be across Pennsylvania. And our folks really embrace the idea of coming out and networking with their friends and helping another community to build a playground like this. It's followed by our summit, a couple of days of training. And so these folks care about their communities, and this is another way to exhibit that.
I've been on Lock Haven City Council for 12 years. I came out here today because I just enjoy this project with the Pennsylvania Municipal League and the other organizations that pull together to build these parks. My wife and I both travel for the Pennsylvania Municipal League summits every year, and we've just had a great time with these park builds and the camaraderie. And frankly, I learned how to put things together. We moved the summit around into different cities, different towns in Pennsylvania, and every city, every town has young people that are looking for a place to spend their time and play, and this just makes a great project. And we spread it around the state, so it's not all in one location; it's in multiple locations. So the kids love it. When the kids show up, they just have a great time.
Today was picture day, so I had to get Maggie all purdied up and on the bus this morning.
I'm glad to participate in the Pennsylvania Municipal League.
and what they do with communities and cities around our state, putting playgrounds together for children. And I'm really amazed with the participation that we have from all the municipalities that came out in the wet and the dry and the cold and the sunny side today. And we ran out of sun, so we're doing it weather permitting no matter what. We stick together, and we still have a little bit to do yet here. And children can jump in this thing and play Monday, and because the concrete has to set up. But what a great facility. Out of the 6 playgrounds that I've built with the Pennsylvania Municipal League, this is probably by far the most beautiful complex overall, with the water park and everything that we did here today and what was pre-done for us by the company and the township employees. But certainly this township, being part of the Municipal League, has stepped up, and if you build it, they will come. And this is just a wonderful event. 200 volunteers. They're not all municipal officials, but a lot of them are. And we have our other corporate sponsors here with Highmark and DCNR, and just everybody's here today. And we appreciate the funding also that helps put this together. And all the school kids, there were 70 school kids here playing around the outside of the fence and getting muddy, and of course they love getting hosed off. And so it's just a great community effort, and thanks to the Pennsylvania Municipal League and Kaboom and everybody putting this together for us to have a good time and to support the communities that we go to for our summits.
A lot of kids are going to have a great time on this playground, and we had one here before, and we totally just got to the place where it had to be replaced. So we're replacing it with a brand new, an even better playground. Anytime they can get away from those electronic gizmos and get out and have fun and enjoy themselves in a nice environment, a safe environment, it's a great day.
The Pennsylvania Municipal League has a great group of corporate partners called the Business Leaders Network. They include 24 businesses, many headquartered here in Pennsylvania, and a number of those folks are here today, particularly HomeServe, Utility Service Partners, Campbell, Beatty, Durant, Palumbo, and Miller. They're here today, as well as Mar Dussel, accounting firm. These are folks that come to these builds every year as a part of our annual conference. So we're very excited to have their partnership and their support, not just their dollars, but their involvement in the organization. The Business Leaders Network is designed for businesses who are in the municipal marketplace to connect with communities throughout Pennsylvania, to build relationships with elected and appointed officials in cities, boroughs, and townships in every corner of our Commonwealth.
My reaction is that I think it's great that the Municipal League is getting involved, and it just shows that this is a community effort to show the commitment to creating a safe and clean place for children to be able to play. What it means is it just gives an opportunity when you talk about having a nice place here in a community in this park. I mean, the rest of this park is so beautiful, so it's great that there will be a playground to kind of complement the other beautiful amenities available here in the park.
Absolutely incredible. I met John about a year ago when this was all forming, and it has been an amazing experience just to work with an organization that's so organized and does such great work in our communities. I think it's a great thing. I always say the constituents for the mayors are our customers as well, and the mayors and ourselves both try to do what's best for the municipality, what's best for their voters. And to do something in a community, you leave your footprint, you leave your impact.
Columbia Gas Pennsylvania is involved in this project because we like to work with agencies like the Kaboom and the Pennsylvania Municipal League to sponsor and support the communities in which we serve. This is where our employees and our customers live and play, and it's important for us to be part of that community.
1, 2, 3. Are we going to cut on the count of 3? 1, 2, 3.
Today has been spectacular. We have a great group of people. We have all kinds of volunteers and sponsors, including Highmark, including First Energy, Columbia Gas, and really top-notch professionals from Cranberry Township that are here to help make this happen. Well over 200 volunteers who did this project in record time today, in spite of
a little bit of rain along the way.
It's fabulous. We knew Cranberry Township would put on a good show. This is a community that is well managed, very progressive local government. We knew this would come off well, and I have no reason to think it won't.